Hi everyone. Yeah, welcome to the stream. Going to be reading out Rudi Altobelli's trial transcript tonight. What Rudi Altobelli said when he was in court. He's the guy who owns Cielo Drive. The last stream I did was talking about him and the woman Olivia Hussey, who was one of the people that moves straight back into Cielo Drive after the murders. And so that was like an introduction to him. And I wanted to read out what he said in court. And the important thing to know about him is as well, he was connected to Terry Melcher and Greg Jacobson and the Golden Penetrators, as they're called, and Dennis Wilson, as you'll hear when he talks in court. And apparently the word is that, Dennis Wilson and Charles Manson had a very intense relationship. They weren't just fooling around. They were in love with each other. Their relationship was so intense that the Manson girls got jealous and stuff like that. So if Dennis Wilson had to testify, he'd have got emotional in court. So they made Terry Melcher and Jacobson and Altobelli testify to protect Dennis. I'm amazed Dennis got away without having to testify, the amount he comes up in this story. But yeah, they made Terry Melcher testify, so Dennis didn't have to, basically. And there's no pictures of Rudi Altobelli walking into court. There were no cameras the day he was there, and the day Hatami testified as well. You can't find pictures of him. So like this day, the press were kept quiet. There are a couple of newspaper articles about it that I probably won't read out, but I'll link them in the description if you're interested. But yeah, very little press coverage of Rudi Altobelli. And yeah, he doesn't sound like a very nice bloke. He sued Sharon Tate's family for the blood and all that sort of thing, didn't he? Yeah. And just sort of like a boy-hungry guy. Was a gay man, nothing wrong with that, but he was a bit creepy by the sound of things, yeah, and very cold and sadistic. It sounded like Olivia Hussey made an interesting comment about him, saying that he laughed hard at other people's pain. He laughed hardest at other people's pain, which is an interesting thing to say, isn't it? Suggests he was kind of a sadistic bloke. Very difficult to find pictures of him. Yeah, that's it. Tommy said what he had to say to remain in the country, yeah, because they did threaten to deport him, didn't they? Yeah. And Hatami is also the guy that Reeve Whitson rang and saying, isn't it terrible what's happened to Sharon? Before the maid had even discovered the bodies, Reeve Whitson somehow knew what had happened to Sharon, yeah. And he rang Hatami, Sharon's photographer, yeah. Oh, the cat's restless tonight. He's come in. Yeah, he was. He was a smarmy dude, and managed quite a lot of people. That was his thing, and he produced a TV show apparently as well, yeah, which is kind of crazy. And he sold Cielo Drive for over $1 million, but ended up penniless, living in like a small apartment in a bad area of town. So where did all his money go? It's like he had to like maybe pay to silence people or whatever, who knows? Yeah. 90 minutes prior, yeah, he rang. Reeve Whitson rang Hatami 90 minutes before the maid had even discovered Sharon, yeah. So before anyone is supposed to know that they're all dead, yeah. Yeah, this is it. Oh God, the comments gone past. Yeah, someone was saying, yeah, no, people couldn't imagine moving back into Cielo Drive right after that had happened there, and it is weird how confident they were, isn't it? Yeah, but she did say there was a panic button there that linked. I think she meant the Bel Air Patrol. She said the Bel Air Police, but the Bel Air Patrol was a private security company. Probably better than having a button to the LAPD sort of thing. Yeah, so they had a panic button and they had guard dogs, didn't they? Yeah. Yeah. It's like the music. He's called Doug Organ. He just puts the music up on websites that you can use for free on YouTube. But yeah, he's on Spotify and everything. People have found him. He's done a few good songs. Yeah, he does. He just lets his music be used on the internet, though. He's good like that. Yeah. And the Americans are getting confused by Butlins as well. One of the British people said, yeah, is there a Butlins in LA? And the Americans said, that is a holiday camp. So like a chain holiday camp that's in all the coastal towns in England, and it's probably the oldest one as well. They're like the most traditional one, yeah. The rumour is Rudi had the house all wired up Diddy style, and that he was always digging up dirt on and for his clients. And maybe Whitson worked for Rudi Altobelli, because Rudi Altobelli was linked to the entertainment industry, obviously, by being a manager and agent for people, wasn't he? Yeah. You wouldn't even go onto the property, like even visit it. Yeah, I would have trouble sleeping in the room because she moved into Abigail's room as well. She was sleeping in Abigail's room, weren't she? Yeah. And but she said no, all she felt was Sharon's lovely vibe sort of thing. Yeah, and it didn't bother her. Yeah, which is Strange, isn't it? It's just very strange. And she was there when Linda Kasabian was being walked around and pointing at the lawn, saying, "Oh, that's where Abigail Folger was lying," and that, you know. But yeah, she didn't seem bothered by it, and she stayed there for 3 years, didn't she? Yeah, apparently. And another thing I didn't mention, I forgot to mention at the time, the guy who raped Olivia Hussey, I've forgotten his name already, I'm sorry, but the actor that raped Olivia Hussey at Cielo Drive, apparently also had an affair with Sharon Tate while she was still alive, obviously, yeah. So that's another strange connection there. Same man, yeah. Yeah. It sounds like it, because that would surely have been mentioned, wouldn't it, if there was the panic button? Yeah. But she says, Olivia Hussey says, she says it was a panic button to the Bel Air police, but I think she meant the Bel Air Patrol, because the Bel Air, there's not a Bel Air police department, is there? It'll be LAPD, yeah. But yeah, that's it as well. Because that's the other thing. If because she says as well, all traces were removed. So like, is that really true that there was the blood on the couch and all that? It's like, who knows? Or is she just covering up? You know, is she covering up for Rudi Altobelli because he was so good to her, or she thinks he was good to her, even though he didn't call the police when the man raped her violently. He just kicked the man out of the house, and that was all he did. Yeah. So it's like, was he? That's it. Christopher Jones. Christopher Jones was his name. Yeah. Sorry, I'd forgotten. Yes, but that same man also apparently had an affair with Sharon Tate, who died at Cielo Drive, and then raped a woman at Cielo Drive. Yeah. Yeah, under on Roman's desk. Well, she just says under the desk. So yeah, possibly, yeah. Because it wasn't Roman's desk by then, was it? He wasn't renting it. He was only the tenant for that 1 year, wasn't he? That he paid for. Yeah. Right. Well, I better get started reading this out, because there's quite a lot to read out. And I'm going to skip over, because Kanarek keeps objecting, like he always does. And he's being... he's just wasting time. And the more I read of these transcripts, the more I think Kanarek was working for the celebrities and trying to, like, because he's always objecting whenever anyone tries to ask anyone who went to the house and stuff like that. If you watch The Maid, when the maid was talking and that, he's always objecting whenever they ask her who went to the parties and stuff like that. So it seems to me that Kanarek was working for them, basically, and trying to shut up anyone who was going to mention anything about the celebrity connections at Cielo. But you see what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. Right. Sorry, just got to get that transcript on the screen. Yeah, because Hatami testified one day, and then he came back and testified a bit, and then Altobelli testified that day as well. There. Right, so they're swearing him in now. Don't need to read that out. And it's Bugliosi that's questioning him. Rudolph Altobelli, called as a witness by and on behalf of the people, being first duly sworn, was examined and testified as follows. Direct examination by Mr. Bugliosi. What is your occupation, sir? Personal manager. For actors and actresses? Yes. And you own the residence and guest house at 10050 Cielo Drive? Yes, I do. And you still own the premises? Yes. When did you purchase the home and the premises? November of 63. I take it you know Terry Melcher? Yes. Oh, sorry, I skipped through it too fast. Did you ever rent the residence to Terry Melcher? Yes, I did. The guest house or the main house? The main house. During what period of time did you rent the main house to Terry Melcher? May 15th of 66, and he stayed until January of 69. Yes, 69. Did you ever rent the main house to the actress Sharon Tate and her director husband, Roman Polanski? Yes, I did. And when did they move in? February 15th, 1969? Yes. Was this a 1-year lease? Yes, it was. And what was the rental per month? $1,200, I think. Were they still the tenants on August 8th and 9th, 1969? Yes, they were. Do you know the defendant, Charles Manson? I have met him. Mr. Kanarek, Your Honour, may we approach the bench at this point? The court. For what purpose? I have a motion in view of this, Your Honour, calling for a conclusion, and I also would like to make a point outside the presence of the jury, Your Honour. The court. Very well, you may approach the bench. And he brings up some legalese here, and he's trying to say they can't mention Charles Manson, but it's a clause that's meant normally for an object, And Bugliosi laughs at him and says, "Oh, we're not going to put a tag on him." But yeah, they reject it. They stop his. If you, and this will be linked in the description if you do want to read all this. But he's just wasting time, basically. Right, it's page 49 I skip to. Whereupon counsel return to their respective places at council table, and the following proceedings occur in open court within the presence and hearing of the jury. I think there's a question pending, Mr. Bugliosi. Mr. Bugliosi, yes, Your Honour. May I reframe it? The court, yes. Mr. Bugliosi, do you know the defendant, Charles Manson, sir? I have met him. When is the first time that you have met him? I met him at Dennis Wilson's home on Sunset Boulevard. I don't know, in late summer or middle summer, early summer of 69, I guess it was. Mr. Kanarek, Your Honour, may I have a continuing objection? The witness, or 68, I'm not sure. Mr. Kanarek, I'm sorry, may I have a continuing objection on relevancy? The court, just a moment, sir. Read the answer. Wait until the answer is concluded, Mr. Kanarek, before you make your whatever it is you are making. Mr. Kanarek, I apologise, Your Honour. I thought he had finished. The court, read the answer. The record was read by the reporter. Mr. Bugliosi, do you want to think about that for just a moment, sir, whether it was 68 or 69? Of course, 1969 would be last summer. It was 69. Last summer? Last summer would be 69. No, it would be 68 then, the summer of 68. Mr. Kanarek, may I at this time then ask the court for a continuing objection on relevancy and materiality to all of the witnesses' testimony? The court, very well. Thank you, Your Honour. Mr. Bugliosi, was Mr. Manson living with Mr. Wilson at this time? Yes, I think he was. But this was Dennis Wilson's home? Yes. Around the 12000 block of Sunset Boulevard? Yes. And how long were you in Mr. Manson's presence on this occasion at Dennis Wilson's home? 20 minutes approximately? Approximately 20 minutes. Who else was present at the time, in addition to yourself and Mr. Manson? Dennis Wilson, Greg Jacobson, a little boy, maybe 3 or 4 years old, I don't know, and 3 girls, 3 or 4 girls. Did you listen to any musical recordings of Mr. Manson? Yes, Dennis was playing a tape that Charles Manson had recorded. That was the first time that you met Mr. Manson? Yes. In March of 1969, Mr. Altobelli, did you fly to Rome, Italy? Yes, I did. What date did you fly to Rome? March the 24th, 1969? Yes. How do you know that this is the date? Because I keep all my tickets and it is in my book. Have you checked your passport also? Yes, and my passport. So the date that you flew to Rome was March 24th, 1969? Yes. Directing your attention to the previous day, March 23rd, 1969. Where were you living at that time? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question. Directing your attention to the previous day, March the 23rd, 1969. Where were you living at that time? I was living in the guest house on Cielo Drive, behind the main residence. Yes. And the main house was still, of course, leased to Sharon Tate and her husband, Roman Polanski. Yes, that is correct. On that date, March the 23rd, 1969, were you preparing to go to Rome? Yes, I was. Packing your suitcase, etc.? Right. Getting business arranged. And what was your purpose for flying to Rome, Mr. Altobelli? I had 2 clients making a movie there. Now, that must be that actor as well that was with Olivia Hussey, mustn't it? And she became his client at the same time after he flies to Rome and meets this dude, yeah. Did you intend to fly to Rome with anyone? Sharon was going to Rome and we decided to go together. She was going to make a movie in Rome. So your purposes in Rome were unrelated, but you were going to fly to Rome together. Yes, that is correct. When you say Sharon, you mean Sharon Tate. Sharon Tate, yes. To your knowledge, was Sharon also packing her suitcase on March the 23rd, 1969, to go to Rome? Yes. On that date, March 23rd, 1969, do you recall whether you were in the guest house in the afternoon? I don't know. I might have been at my business manager's arranging for my trip and different business. Were you there that evening? Yes, I was. That evening, March 23rd, 1969, did you visit the main house, the house that Sharon was living in? For a few minutes, yes. And you observed that she was packing to go to Rome. She was in preparation, yes. Was anyone else there with her? There were other people there, yes. And who were they? There was Wojtek and Abigail, and Hatami, I think, was in the house at the time, and Jay Sebring. Wojtek Frykowski and Abigail Folger, Jay Sebring, and the photographer Hatami. Is that correct? Yes, that is correct. And then after you visited Sharon briefly, then you went back to your guest house. Yes, that is correct. Did anyone come back to your guest house after you returned from Sharon's residence? Yes, I went in and I was showering, and my dog Christopher was barking. I got out of the shower and somebody was at my front door. Charles Manson was at my door. About what time was this? Approximately 8, 9 o'clock in the evening? In the evening. What is the next thing that happened? I asked him what he wanted. He said, my name is Mr. Kanarek. I'll object. Mr. Kanarek says, I will object on the grounds of hearsay, if I may. This certainly is not any exception to the hearsay rule. It is prior to any kind of event occurring. So it couldn't be an admission. It has to be. It is a conclusion and hearsay, Your Honour, and inadmissible. The court. Do you wish to argue, Mr. Bugliosi? Mr. Bugliosi, well, it certainly comes in. The court, if you wish to argue, you may approach the bench. Mr. Bugliosi, all right. And then, yeah, they approach the bench again. But again, it's just time wasting. If you want to read it, you can find it in the description, but it's not. I'm going to get to page 58 to skip it. Right, we're back. The jury is instructed that the evidence of any conversation between this witness and Mr. Manson is to be received only with respect to Mr. Manson and not to any other defendant for any purpose whatever. By Mr. Bugliosi. Mr. Altobelli, you had a conversation with Mr. Manson. Yes, and he was by himself. Yes, he was. And there was no one else in addition to yourself and he that were there. Is that correct? That's correct. Where were you and he at the time of the conversation? He was outside the door and I was inside the door and the door was open. He was in the entranceway. Was there a screen door to your guest house at that time? Yes, there was. Had he entered the screen door at that point? Yes, he did. Had you invited him in? Not into the screen door, no. I did not invite him into the house. So he entered the screen door on his own without your consent. Is that correct? Mr. Kanarek, leading and suggestive. The witness. That is a fact. The court. Overruled. Mr. Kanarek, conclusion, Your Honour. The court. Overruled. By Mr. Bugliosi. At the time of the conversation between the screen door and the main door of your guest house, yes. Was the main door open? Yes, it was. And you were on the inside of the main door? Yes. And he was on the outside? That is correct. Okay, would you relate the conversation you had with him? Mr. Kanarek, Your Honour, I object on the grounds of hearsay. The court, you have already made your objection. Mr. Kanarek, in accordance with Your Honour's ruling then, would Your Honour state to the jurors that this is not being the court? I don't want to hear any speech. You had your opportunity at the bench and you made your objections. Mr. Kanarek, but Your Honour is not following Your Honour's ruling. The court, very well, sit down, Mr. Kanarek, and let this examination proceed. If you have some additional objection, you may state it. I don't want to hear argument. Mr. Kanarek, yes, Your Honour. Well, may I make a motion at the bench then, because I think the court, something in addition. Mr. Kanarek, yes, because Your Honour's ruling, I think Your Honour should state to the jury. Mr. Bugliosi, if he's going to start making legal arguments, Your Honour, this has to be at the bench. The court, approach the bench. Thank you, Your Honour. So, yeah, again, we have to skip again. 62. But you can see he's just trying to prevent them from saying anything about Manson, basically, isn't he? Right. Mr. Bugliosi, did Mr. Manson introduce himself? He started to, and I said, I remembered him. I said, I know who you are, Charlie. You said, I know who you are, Charlie. Yes. And then you had a conversation with him. Yes. And I asked him if he was alone, and he said, yes. I asked, did you go to the front house? And he said, yes. And I said, why? What did he want? He said he was looking for Terry Melcher. And I said, Terry Melcher did not live there anymore. And he said, yes, he knew that, but where did he live? And I said, he lived in Malibu. I did not know the exact address. Now, before you go any further, did Mr. Manson say anything about being sent back? Yes, he had to go to the front house, which disturbed me, because I don't like my tenants disturbed. And I said, you shouldn't, just go up to somebody's house. And he said they sent him back to me. All right, you may continue with the conversation about where Terry Melcher was. And he wanted to know where Terry was, and I said I did not know his exact address in Malibu, and that he was living at his mother's home. And I said to him, I would like to talk to you longer, but I have to get packed. I'm leaving the country. And he asked me where I was going, and I said to Rome. And he said, for what? And I said, I have clients making a movie. And he said he was going to make a movie and record himself. And I said, yes, I understand you are very talented. With that, he said he would like to come back and talk to me, and when would I be back? And I said I will be gone for over a year. That was about the extent of the conversation. That was it. And then he departed. Is that correct? Yes, he left. Do you recall whether Mr. Manson had a beard at that particular time? No, he did not. Did he have any growth at all around his chin? He may have needed a shave. Mr. Bugliosi, Your Honour, I would request at this time that Mr. Manson be brought into the court for attempted identification purposes. Mr. Kanarek, I would object on the grounds of the Fourth Amendment and 1538.5 of the Penal Code. The court, bring Mr. Manson into the courtroom. The objections are overruled. Mr. Kanarek, Your Honour, could we approach the bench so I can make a further argument? No! Mr. Manson enters the courtroom by Mr. Bugliosi. Do you see the man walking out of the lockup, sir? Yes. Do you recognise him? Yes. Who is he? Charles Manson. Is he the man to whom you have been referring in your testimony? Yes, he is. The man you spoke to on March the 23rd, 1969 at the guest house. That's correct. Mr. Bugliosi, I have no further questions with respect to the identification, Your Honour. The court. Very well, you may take Mr. Manson back. Defendant Manson leaves the courtroom. Mr. Kanarek, may the record reflect that Mr. Manson, the witness... Could I ask a question, please? Mr. Kanarek, may the record reflect that Mr. Manson does not have a beard and that he deliberately took this beard off? Mr. Bugliosi, Your Honour, this is argument. He is arguing in front of the jury, Your Honour. The court. That's right. Mr. Kanarek, is it a fair statement that he did not have a beard? Mr. Bugliosi, if you want to make a legal argument, Mr. Kanarek, I think it has to be at the bench. Mr. Kanarek, I will be glad to approach the bench if I may, Your Honour. The court. There is no point approaching the bench. You may proceed. Is there any cross-examination? Mr. Bugliosi, I'm not through yet, Your Honour. Just on the issue of identification, I indicated I have no further questions. The court. You may proceed. Yeah, and I was going to take a break here just for a second. Right. Oh, was I still on the screen? Sorry about that. It makes it slightly bigger if I go off the screen like that, doesn't it? But yeah, like I say, if you want to read it, it will be linked in the description if you're on, if you're watching this on playback. Yeah, right. So, well, it's interesting. Yeah, I can see more new subscribers showing up as well. Yeah. Yes, but that's very interesting, isn't it? And how Rudi Altobeli says, he thought Charles Manson was talented because they want you to say. They want everyone wants to, they want you to believe that he was a failed musician and that he wasn't any good and that's why he didn't make it. But actually, talent agents and people like Terry Melcher and all that actually thought he was good. He did have talent. So that's interesting, isn't it? And yeah, the stuff he's not saying as well, though. What is he not saying about it? Cool. So just let me look at the chat a sec. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Neil Young apparently really, really advocated for him, didn't he? Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, well, the whole trial was designed just to muddy the waters, wasn't it? Yes. And they couldn't get out of people from this camp testifying, that Terry Melcher and that. But like I say, I can't believe that Dennis Wilson wasn't forced to testify, but they made Terry Melcher testify instead, apparently, to save Dennis Wilson. Because he would have cracked up in court. He was so emotionally involved with them all, I think. I don't think he could have handled it, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, sorry, just let me have a look further up the chat, see if people were saying stuff while I was reading that out. Yeah, because it is interesting. Yeah, and he says he already knew who he was because Terry Melcher and Greg Jacobson. Has he said that yet? Because when he's they ask him more in a minute. Maybe I haven't read that out yet, but he does say that he already knew him. He had heard about him from Greg Jacobson and Terry Melcher. So before he ever met him, he knew who he was and had heard a lot about him. Yeah, it's interesting. So yeah, the amount of people that I have showing up to the streams now is good, isn't it? It's good. I've got a much bigger audience, haven't I? Thanks for coming, everyone. I appreciate it, and it really helps the streams. The more people that are here when it's actually going, the better it does in the algorithm. It really helps. Right, because there's so much to read out. I'm going to get back to reading this out. I'm going off the screen. There we go. I'll get rid of that again. Get rid of that, can I? That makes it a bit bigger for you. Right. Right, so Mr. Bugliosi, did you in fact then fly to Rome with Sharon on March the 24th, 1969? Yes, I did. When was the last time you saw Sharon Tate alive? Early July 1st in London with Roman. We had dinner. Incidentally, how tall is Roman Polanski approximately? Maybe 5'5"? 5 feet 5 inches? Yes, approximately. Do you know a young man named William Garretson? Yes. Did Mr. Garretson work for you? Yes, he did. Could you briefly explain your business relationship with Mr. Garretson? Mr. Garretson took care of my dogs. He loved my dogs, and my dogs loved him. I did not want to put them in a kennel. I was going to be gone for a long time, and I hired him to take care of the dogs and the house, to keep it clean. How many dogs did you have? 3. When did Mr. Garretson move into your guest house? The 24th, the day I left. March 24th, 1969? Yes, that's correct. Did Mr. Garretson have any responsibilities with respect to the main house, the house that Sharon lived in? Just to leave them alone. But did he have the responsibility to take care of your 3 dogs and the guest house? Yes. Incidentally, Mr. Altobelli, do you recall or are you aware of whether or not it is rather difficult to hear noises in the front of the Tate premises? Mr. Kanarek, that is ambiguous, Your Honour. It calls for a conclusion. The court, sustained. Mr. Kanarek, whether it's an atomic sub, very well. By Mr. Bugliosi. When you're in the guest house at your premises, have you experienced difficulty hearing noises up front? Mr. Kanarek, it is ambiguous, Your Honour. Mr. Bugliosi, this is foundational, Your Honour. Mr. Kanarek, it is assuming facts, not in evidence. It is prejudicial. Value far outweighs the probative value without the proper foundation as to. The court, sustained. Mr. Bugliosi, do you have a stereo set in the guest house? I did have, yes. Was there one there in March of 1969? Yes. In August of 69? Yes. Was it your stereo? Yes, it is. It was not Mr. Garretson's. No, it's mine. With that stereo set on, did you ever experience difficulty hearing noises up front? Mr. Kanarek, I object, Your Honour, on the grounds it calls for a conclusion. Its prejudicial value far outweighs the probative value. And furthermore, it is cumulative in that he had a purported expert here in connection with this matter, Your Honour, and there is no foundation. The court, objection is sustained. Mr. Bugliosi, no further questions, Your Honour. Mr. Fitzgerald, no questions, Your Honour. The court, Mr. Shinn. Mr. Shinn, yes, Your Honour. Right, so I'll break again quickly before Daye Shinn cross-examines him. But yes, it's interesting as well how every time they try to ask someone in the guest house, can you hear stuff? Have you ever had trouble hearing stuff out the front? Kanarek objects. He does it to Garretson as well. He will not let them ask the question, do you have trouble hearing what's going on outside at the front of the house from the guest house? For some reason, Kanarek does not want that question asked. He always objects and makes them change it to asking about the stereo and the volume of the stereo. So yeah, he didn't know that. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, just looking at the chat for a sec. Yeah. Yeah, he lived above his means, didn't he? All about appearing wealthy. Yeah, because he had a butler and that, didn't he? But he couldn't pay the butler, could he? Apparently, yeah. So God knows why the butler was even staying. Yeah, he was in massive debt, wasn't he? But he was living in a big posh house and had a butler and that, and was trying to look wealthy. Yeah, but he had huge gambling debts, didn't he? Apparently. Yeah. I'm sorry, just look at the chat. But yeah, they definitely do not want it brought up because it's because it's so strange that Garretson says he didn't hear anything. But there is an interview with Garretson, a later interview with Garretson. People have been showing it in my Facebook group, and I'll put it on the subreddit if it's not there already, where Garretson is interviewed, and he says he did hear screams coming from the lawn, because he doesn't say that in court. He says he didn't hear a thing. But there is a later interview with him where he says he did hear people screaming on the lawn. So, yeah, who knows? Maybe I'll show that clip one night if we get into it. But yeah, Garretson years later talking. Yeah. Well, this is it. Yeah, a lot of people think that he probably ran off as soon as stuff started kicking off, and that's why he was all right. But then why return as well? Why return and go to sleep? Because he was apparently sound asleep. The cops woke him up when they knocked on the door. So it's kind of strange. If he ran away, why go home and then fall asleep like a baby? You know. So that's makes me think maybe he was there. But yeah, it is a very strange thing. And he also Garrettson revealed as well, that the back door was open. The back door had been left open for the dogs. So the guest house was open. If they did check the guest house, they definitely could have walked right in and found him. But he apparently didn't get found and lived. So yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I'll keep reading because otherwise we'll be here all night. So now we're getting to Daye Shinn. Mr. Altobelli, this is Daye Shinn talking to him now. Mr. Altobelli, you said you met Mr. Manson. Yes, that's correct. The first time you met Mr. Manson was when? It was the summer of 68. 68? Yes. And what was... and that was at someone else's house? Yes, Dennis Wilson. And do you recall approximately what time you met him there? It was in the evening, the early evening. And was anyone else there, present beside Mr. Manson? Yes, Greg Jacobson, several girls. I don't know, 3, 4, 5 girls. There were people all over the place. People all over the place? In other words, would you say there were about 20 people in the house? No, I wouldn't say 20 people. I did not count them. I was in Mr. Wilson's bedroom and I walked through the house to look at it. I saw people sleeping in the bedrooms. I saw people on the grounds. I saw people in the kitchen. In other words, there were people all over the house. Yes, there was. And when you first saw Mr. Manson, where was Mr. Manson in the house? He was somewhere else other than the first time I saw him. Yes. I saw him in Dennis Wilson's room. Was he by himself? I don't know what you mean by himself. There were other people there. How many other people were there in the room? There were 3 girls that came in and out. Various people came in and out of the room. Dennis Wilson was there. I sat on the bed. Greg Jacobson sat on the bed. There was a little boy that came in and asked for money for Charlie from Dennis Wilson. I'd love to know who that little boy is as well. That's interesting. Where was Charlie in this room when you first saw Mr. Manson? He was sitting to the left of me on the floor. He came in, we met, and we were introduced. Somebody introduced you? Yes, that's correct. Do you know the name of that person? Yes, Dennis Wilson. And after that, did you say anything to Mr. Manson? No, I did not. In other words, you just ignored him. No, we listened to his music. And you don't talk when you're listening to an artist's music. How long did you listen to his music? 20 minutes, maybe longer? I don't know exactly. I did not time it. Where was Mr. Manson in relation to you when you were listening to the music? To my left, squatting on the floor, sitting on the floor. Sitting on the floor? That's correct. How about you? In a chair? I was on the bed. Now, were you looking at him all this time? I was looking at him. Was I looking at him all of this time? Yes, Mr. Manson. No, there were other pretty people there. In other words, you met Mr. Manson, you took your eyes away from him, and you talked to other people. Is that correct? I talked to several people, yes. Lots of people that night. Not lots of people, no. What were the names of the other people you met in the room that night? 3 girls. I don't know their names. Did they introduce you to these girls? No, I don't think they did. You're not sure? I am positive they did not introduce me to the girls. I was with Dennis and Greg Jacobson mainly. I did meet the little boy. Do you know his name? No, I don't. You forgot his name, is that correct? That's correct. But you remember Charles Manson? Yes, because I have heard of Charlie for a long time, before I ever met him. Did you know his last name at that time? Yes. And you called him Charlie? Yes, that is correct. You stayed in there for what, 20 minutes? Maybe, yes. And during this 20 minutes, did you have any conversation with Mr. Manson? No, I did not have any conversation with him. In other words, after you were introduced, you did not talk to him any more. Is that correct? Just that the music was nice. While the music was playing for 20 minutes, you did not look at Mr. Manson, did you? Sure I did. You kept looking at him? No, not kept looking at him. I don't stare at anyone. It's rude. How often did you look at Mr. Manson? I don't know. Maybe 1 minute, 2 minutes? I don't know. I don't time how long I look at anyone. I just looked at this man here for a few minutes in his eyes. I don't know. A few seconds. I don't know how long it is. A few seconds? I don't know how long it is. Then, did you leave the room, or did Mr. Manson leave the room? I checked him out thoroughly because I heard a lot about him, and I checked him up and down thoroughly. How did you check him out? Just looking at him. Up and down, you said? Yes. Up and down where? From his feet to his head. Mr. Bugliosi, this is argumentative. Well, I will withdraw the objection. Mr. Shinn, I didn't get the answer. Did you answer, sir? The witness. I beg your pardon. I didn't hear the question then. Mr. Shinn, I asked you. You said, how did I check him out? You said you looked him up and down. Yes. That is my business. When somebody has talent, I check them out closely, their presence. Did you check him out before you heard his music or after you heard his music? or after you heard his music? I was hearing his music when he came in. Then you checked him out at that point? Yes. And did you leave the room first, or did Mr. Manson leave the room first? I don't know. I don't remember. In other words, the events for the days are pretty foggy. No. That is back in March 1968. I remember it very clearly. You don't recall if you left the room first or if Mr. Manson left the room first. Is that correct? No, that is correct. Did you have any other conversation with Mr. Manson in the bedroom? No, just that I thought the music was nice. You don't know if you left the bedroom first or Mr. Manson left the bedroom first? No, I do not, because I got up and wandered around the house. And then you talked to other people that day, correct? No, I did not talk to anybody else there. There was a man by the name of Dean in the living room, an older man who was some sort of philosopher or something, and I wanted to ignore any conversation with him at all. And Dean Morehouse apparently lived at the guest house, so he's denying knowledge of Dean, or playing down knowledge of Dean. In other words, you didn't have very much conversation with anyone that night. Is that right? That is correct. Now, you didn't see Mr. Manson after the bedroom incident, did you? I passed him in the hallway. You passed him in the hallway? Yes. When was this? The same evening, as I was going to say good night. You passed him in the hallway, and did you say anything to Mr. Manson at that time? Good night. That's all? Nice to have met you. In other words, your conversation of Mr. Manson was a very, very short time. Is that correct? I don't know what you consider short. Well, it wasn't a long time, was it? You met him, then you focused your attention on the music, and then you met him in the hallway, and you passed him by, and you said good night. Is that correct? That is correct. That is correct? Yes. You didn't put his name down or address. I beg your pardon. Did you put his address or name down? Someplace. I didn't know he had an address, except for living with Dennis Wilson. In other words, you weren't very interested in Mr. Manson. The name I had been. I was aware of Charlie Manson for a long time before I met him, through Greg Jacobson and Dennis Wilson and Terry Melcher. But they frequently talked of Charlie Manson and his way of life. Now, when was the next time that you saw Mr. Manson? The first time was March 1968, correct? March of 68? That's the first time you met Mr. Manson. No, I did not say March of 68. What month? It was the summer of 68. I had met him again, March of 69. I saw him again. Now, when you first saw Mr. Manson, Mr. Altobelli, do you recall anything outstanding about his features? Outstanding? Yes. I think he has a part between his teeth, a space. You were that close to his teeth? Yes. I like to notice people's teeth. I'm a personal manager, Mr. Shinn. Is that your name? Yes, that's right. That is correct. Shinn. Shinn. It is my business. I'm a personal manager, a manager of talent. And when I meet people, you get close to them. I check them out closely. Mr. Shinn. Thank you. I have no further questions. Cool. Any questions, Mr. Kanarek? Mr. Kanarek. Yes, thank you, Your Honor. And I'll take a break again, but we'll read that out because, this gets pretty crazy. Altobelli and Kanarek obviously had some kind of altercation and don't like each other. This gets wacky now. But yes, that's the bit where he's saying he had heard a lot about Charles Manson and his way of life from Greg Jacobson, Dennis Wilson, and Terry Melcher. And who was the little boy as well? I'd love to know who the little boy was. Whose son could that have been? Because it would Rudi Altobelli have recognized Dennis Wilson's son? Presumably he would have recognized Dennis Wilson's son because Dennis Wilson had a young son, didn't he? So he would have known if it was Dennis Wilson's kid. It was presumably, I don't know though. Who knows? Oh yeah, this is Rudi Altobelli. Rudi Altobelli is the one, who's being grilled, and he's the guy who owned Cielo Drive and lived in the guest house until he went away for a year and left Garrettson living there. Yeah. Altobelli's the owner of Cielo Drive, and he's like quite a nasty piece of work. He sued Roman and Sharon's family, didn't he, over the blood, and was supposed to have kept the bloodstains under the carpet and showed them to people at parties and all that sort of thing. Yeah, quite a bit of a sicko. And they moved straight in, back into the house. And like I say, I read out last week all the stuff Olivia Hussey said about not being freaked out by the house, though. She said the vibe wasn't bad there and she was fine there. Despite even being violently raped there as well, the poor woman, yeah. Horrible. Yeah. Could it have been little Jimmy Osmond? I don't know. In 1969. How old would he have been? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yes, that little blonde girl. Yeah, that is a disturbing clip, yeah, from that Hendrickson documentary, with the little girl who's on Clem's lap. Oh, horrible, yes. He's the one that they let out of prison. He got released in the 80s. Disturbing shit. Lots of stories about him flashing at kids and stuff like that as well, isn't there? Yeah, we can only hope they monitor him and assessed him and found he wasn't arrested children anymore. But yeah, who knows? Yeah. It could be Dennis Rice's little boy. Did he have a little boy as well? Because there is a little blonde boy in the Hendrickson documentary as well, isn't there? Yeah, because he looks stoned. It's disturbing, yeah, because there's a little girl sitting on Clem's lap and he's rubbing her inappropriately. It just looks nasty. And then they focus on the little boy, and the little boy looks stoned, like he's had a joint. It's like, bloody hell. And he looks about 7 or 8. Yeah, it could have been him, maybe. This is total speculation, though. No idea who this little boy was. He doesn't describe him, doesn't say what colour his hair was or anything. But yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was it. A lot of them showed up after the because that was when all the publicity went out about how game all the girls were and that, I suppose, wasn't it? Yeah, so lots of people probably flocked to it just to see what they could get from the girls. Yeah. No, Pooh Bear wouldn't have been old enough to have been walking into the room and asking for money. Apparently the little boy came into the room and asked Dennis for money for Charlie. So the kid must have been old enough to be walking and talking. It can't have been Pooh Bear, a baby, can it? Yeah, he was only a baby, wasn't he? Yeah, I think it's sad that Cielo Drive got knocked down. But I can understand why, because people were so, painful for the families of the victims. So many people were going up there and all that, yeah. But there's more history to that house than just these Manson murders, though, as well. Other actresses lived there. Lillian Gish lived there. It was built by a French actress, wasn't it? There was a lot more history to the place. And it's a horrible house they've built there now, isn't it? It's a bloody monstrosity what they've built there now. Horrible, yeah. Huh. Right, and because it gets a bit wacky now, because him and Kanarek obviously don't like each other. Right. Mr. Altobelli, so this is Kanarek. Manson's lawyer is now cross-examining Altobelli. Yeah. Mr. Kanarek, Mr. Altobelli, is it a fair statement that you don't like Mr. Manson? I don't dislike Mr. Manson. You don't? No. Do you remember having a conversation with me when I tried to get into your fortress out there on Cielo Drive? Mr. Bugliosi, argumentative. The witness, I remember your insinuation of threats. Mr. Kanarek, what were my insinuations and threats? Answer, that we will take care of you, Mr. Altobelli. We will see about you, Mr. Altobelli. We will get the court up at your house and have the trial at your house, Mr. Altobelli. I will see the judge has the trial at your house. Several people. I have several extensions in my home and several people listen to your conversation. You understand that you're under oath, do you not? Yes, I am. Now let's get it clear, Mr. Altobelli. I understand. Did you interpret as a threat when I asked you to view the premises when a man is charged with what Mr. Manson is charged? I said no. May I finish, Mr. Altobelli? Yes, Mr. Kanarek, you may finish. If I may finish. Is it a fact that I called you up and asked you politely, nicely, if I might view the premises in view of the very serious charges that have been made against Mr. Manson? Now, would you just answer my question? Mr. Bugliosi will be able to speak with you further. Is it a fact that I asked you, may I come in, and I stated my business? It was daylight, the middle of the day, right? Yes, it was on a Sunday. On a Sunday, correct. Right. And I asked if I might come in, didn't I? You asked if you could come up and see the premises and talk to me for about 15 minutes. That's what I asked for. Is it your state of mind that it is a threat when a lawyer in a case of this type? Well, yes. May I finish? If I may finish, Mr. Altobelli? Yes. Is it your state of mind that it is a threat for a lawyer to want to view the premises where the events that we are talking about in this courtroom purportedly occurred? Do you consider that a threat? I consider it a threat when I refused you and I said, if the court gives you permission, tells me that I have to let you on my premises. I said it would be perfectly okay. And you told me, we will see about you, Mr. Altobelli. I stated that I will see about you. Yes, we will see about you. And you said, we will get the whole trial tried up at your house. And I swear under oath that you said that to me. That I said the whole trial will be there, or did I say you said you would have the whole trial up there and that it would be at my house? All right, now, Mr. Altobelli, at my home. Let me ask you this. Did I say that I would ask the court that we view the premises during the course of the trial, Mr. Altobelli? I told you, I said I imagined that everybody would come up during the trial, and that if they did, I was ready for it. Would you answer my question, please? That is the only way I can answer it, because I can't give you an answer the way you are asking me. You can answer yes or no if I am stating, I will not answer yes or no if it's not right. Answer yes or no, Mr. Altobelli. Then you may explain. I am sure Judge Older will let you explain. Then, do you want to repeat your question? Yes, I will be glad to. Did I ask you to let me view the premises? Would you answer that first? You didn't finish what you asked me. May I ask this question of you, and would you please answer it? I am asking you this question at this time. Do you respect our courts of law, Mr. Altobelli? I think more than you do, Mr. Kanarek. You do? Would you tell the court and the jury what you told me about our courts of law when I spoke with you? What did I say? I am asking you. I don't know what I said about the courts of law. You don't remember what you said about our courts of law? I probably said it was a circus with you in it. That is probably what I said to you. I see. Now, would you tell us what you said, if anything, concerning our courts of law? You told me that Charles Manson had never been up at my house, and I didn't tell you anything one way or the other, whether he was or he wasn't. You were trying to insinuate, to tell me that he was not, and you wanted to talk to me for 15 minutes and view the premises, and I told you no. I said if the court says you could come up, you should come up. I said it would be perfectly okay. Mr. Altobelli, may I have an answer to the question that I asked you? If you finish the question the way it was the day you asked me, you don't want to answer the question I am asking. Your Honour, may the question be read and answered. The court, reframe the question, Mr. Kanarek. By Mr. Kanarek. Now, would you listen to the question, Mr. Altobelli? If you finish the question, well, when I stop and gasp for breath or something, you can tell me I am through. I am not going to give you a yes or no unless you finish what you asked me on the telephone. The court, all right, listen to the question first. You may answer it in whatever manner you like, as long as you tell the truth. The witness, yes, sir. Mr. Kanarek. Now, Mr. Altobelli, let's back off a little bit. Let's back off a little bit and see if we can portray for the people in this courtroom what really happened. It was a sunny Sunday afternoon, right? I don't know. I was in bed when you called. It was the middle of the afternoon, right? Well, I can sleep any time I want when I'm not working. I concede that, Mr. Altobelli. Now, my question is, when I called, first of all, did I state my true name and what my business was to someone who was not you who answered the phone? That is possible. Well, what do you mean possible? You know it is true, do you not, Mr. Altobelli? It is possible. There were other people in the house. You say you had people listening on the extension. Did you record my conversation? I wish I had. I wish you had too, Mr. Altobelli. Believe me, from the bottom of my heart, I wish you had, because you are so emotionally involved in this. Mr. Bugliosi, Your Honour, he is arguing to the jury now. The court, sustained. Mr. Kanarek, very well. I concede that I am. Mr. Altobelli, did you tell me? Let me withdraw that and ask you, is it in fact, when I spoke to you, the person, I made no misrepresentations? I told the person who I was and what my business was to the person, the boy that lives there with you on the premises. You stated who you were, yes. And what my business was. What your business was? Right. And then you came to the telephone, right? Yes. And I told you that I did not wish to inconvenience you. Is that correct? I don't remember that, no. You don't remember whether that happened or not? Inconvenience? No. You said you wanted to come up at my convenience to see the premises. Right. And to talk to me for 15 minutes. Right. And I told you that all I wished to hear from you was the gospel truth. And when I said no, you told me there was an injustice being done with the press and with Charles Manson, and that he had never been up at my house and he had never been on my premises. You told me this. Mr. Altobelli, first of all, may I ask you this? Would you tell us, please, who the people were that were listening on the telephone? I don't have to. It's none of your business. I think the court will ask you to answer it, Mr. Altobelli. It was the houseman that works for me. What is his name? His name is Robert Conrad, but he does not work for me now. Where does he live? I don't know where he lives. How can we get a hold of Robert Conrad? I have no idea. May I finish the question? He is in Yugoslavia, I think. Mr. Robert Conrad is now living in Yugoslavia. Yes, that's where he is from. He was an exchange student. Is he living in Yugoslavia now? I have no idea. How can I get a hold of Robert Conrad? I have no idea. May I finish the question, Mr. Altobelli? Yes. Would you tell me how I can get a hold of Mr. Robert Conrad? I have no idea. How did he come to your knowledge or come to your house? Mr. Bugliosi, this is irrelevant. Mr. Kanarek, I want to find this man. We have a right to try and find him. The court. The objection is sustained. Mr. Kanarek, what is Mr. Robert Conrad's last known address, Mr. Altobelli? 10050 Cielo Drive. And that was his address what was his address just prior to that? I have no idea. Yugoslavia. What city in Yugoslavia? I have no idea. Who in the city of Los Angeles or anywhere in the world knows Mr. Conrad that you know of? I have no idea. No one at all? People that once came to my house. Pardon? People that came to my house. Who are these people? I think that is none of your business, Mr. Kanarek. Mr. Kanarek, Your Honour, I don't have to name my guest list. Mr. Kanarek, I'm trying to get evidence for the court. The court. He says he doesn't know. Mr. Kanarek, may I ask you this? You say Mr. Conrad was an exchange student, Mr. Altobelli. Yes, that is correct. Now, would you please tell me where he was enrolled in this country as a student? I have no idea. You don't know? No. UCLA. Well, was it UCLA, Mr. Altobelli? Yes, I think it was. What subject matter was he studying? As a designer. He was studying designing at UCLA. That is correct. And does he speak English fluently? You talk to him. Mr. Kanarek, Your Honour, may I have an answer to the question? The witness, he speaks very well, yes. Mr. Kanarek, Mr. Manson is entitled to due process and a fair trial. May I have an answer to that question? The witness, I don't understand what Mr. Conrad has to do with Mr. Manson or anything else. The court, just answer the question. The witness, yes, Your Honour, I will answer the question. Mr. Kanarek, may I have an answer, Your Honour? Does he speak English? The witness, yes, he speaks English very well. You spoke to him on the telephone. He answered all these questions several times. Why does he keep asking him, right? Mr. Kanarek, now, several times. Does he have a middle name? I have no idea. I see. How long did he live on your premises? I don't know, until August, September. Beginning when, Mr. Altobelli? Yeah, anyway, we don't have to read through all this. Anyway, I just wanted people to hear the interesting part there was Kanarek apparently asked to come up and talk to Rudi Altobelli and was trying. It sounds like he was trying to threaten Rudi Altobelli, and he was trying to get him to say Charles Manson had never been to his house. And I think what Rudi Altobelli says is quite fair as well. Why should he let the lawyer come up without being told by the court that the lawyer has to come up and look at his house? You know, so yeah, that does seem dodgy by Kanarek, doesn't it? Yeah, and Altobelli was obviously really annoyed with him. But yes, that's the interesting thing. Yeah. And yeah, he just goes on like this, I think, for the rest of the thing. So yeah, that's it. He just goes on for ages. Yeah, trying to find out who the other guy that was listening on the thing on the thing was. But he, like I say, he's just wasting time. He just seems to be trying to stop, you know, the witness finishing what was being said, basically. Yeah, I don't know if it was that Robert Conrad. He said it was a Yugoslavian dude, doesn't he? And they were like, he used to have a lot of exchange students living in the guest house. It sort of comes out in Garrettson's bit as well, doesn't it? He had different students living at the house. There's, you know, these houseboys sort of thing. Yeah. I think the Robert Conrad guy was a closeted gay man, yeah, because he just says he was a student, an exchange student from Yugoslavia, and he had returned to Yugoslavia. So he was no longer in the country. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, thank you. It's a lot of reading. I try and read it clearly as well and speak slowly because I know I mumble a lot and people can't understand my accent. Well, most people seem to, but I do get quite a few comments from people who wish I spoke clearer. I try to speak slowly and clearer. Yeah. These are the imported Paul by Mafia. That's it. God. So it was Robert Conrad living at Cielo. Well, must be after the trial, mustn't it? Because this is when Kanarek rang him up and said, "I want to come up to the house." And when Altobelli said no, he starts threatening him. He starts going, "We'll see about you, Mr. Altobelli, and yeah, we'll bring the whole trial up to your house." And that, yeah, he starts hassling him. basically. And this guy, Robert Conrad, is supposed to have been the one that was listening on the other extension and heard it. So he must have been there, yeah. At that time, just before the trial began. So after the murders, yeah. Yeah. Oh, thank you. You're liking it. Yeah. There's bloody over 100 people here as well. Yeah. Thanks for coming, everyone. So, and we've just hit an hour now, and I've finished reading out everything I wanted to read out. So we'll go to an offshoot, but we'll discuss it for a bit longer, though, yeah, because it's interesting. Obviously, isn't it? And like I say, I could carry on reading that, but it's just Kanarek again stalling and trying to get him to not. And he was trying to show up, Rudi Altobeli, but he actually made himself look like more of a dick, in my opinion, by saying because Rudi Altobeli was actually perfectly within his right to say no, not unless the court tells me I have to let you come up to my house. Why would I? Why would anyone? Why should anyone do that? You know. Yeah, that does. It doesn't sound like a very Yugoslavian name, does it? As well, yeah. Unless he anglicised his name while he was in America. A lot of people do that, don't they? A lot of people from Europe at this time, particularly in the 60s as well, they tended to do that, didn't they? They changed their names to make them sound more American. So possibly he just used he anglicised his name a bit or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, Altobelli is one of the few who knew. He knew everyone, didn't he? And Terry Melcher and Greg Jacobson and all of them. And Dean Morehouse, he seems to play down the fact he knew Dean Morehouse as well. If Dean Morehouse, because I've heard that it can be debunked that Dean Morehouse actually lived in the guest house. That the time that Dean Morehouse is supposed to have lived in the guest house, he was actually in jail. People have found out, but I don't know if that's true or not. But it seems odd because he very, very briefly says that Dean Morehouse was in the living room. He says that there was a guy called Dean who was some kind of preacher, and I didn't want to talk to him. So he makes out that he didn't know him very well. But Dean Morehouse is meant to have lived in his guest house. So, yeah. So he definitely knew Dean Morehouse. Yeah. Robert Conrad, yeah. But by the sound of things, I know that I've heard of an actor called Robert Conrad, but I'm pretty sure that's not who Rudi Altobelli's talking about here. This is some exchange student that lived in his house. But yeah, good point people are making. That doesn't sound like a very Yugoslavian name, does it? So no, it wasn't the actor Robert Conrad. It was just some exchange student that he had living at his house. One of his other houseboys, yeah. They all had him in the 60s. By the sound of things, it was the fashion at the time, sort of thing. Yeah, no, it's definitely not Robert Conrad, the actor. Yeah, it's not him. It's some exchange student that was living at the house. Yeah. Yeah, well, this is it. Apparently, they say Tex and I've just said his name, Dean Morehouse. Tex and Dean Morehouse are supposed to have lived at the guest house at the same time. But then I remember someone had discovered that Dean Morehouse actually did a stint in jail. And Dean Morehouse was actually in jail at the time period when people were saying that he lived there, basically. So did Dean Morehouse even really ever live at the guest house? So yeah, it's confusing. Yeah, well, this is what is Rudi let Dean and Watson stay at the guest house. Yeah, and Terry was living in the main house. It was when Terry Melcher was living in the main house, and Dean Morehouse and Charles Watson are supposed to have lived at the guest house. But I did hear a couple of years ago that somehow someone managed to find that the time period is up in the air now because Dean Morehouse was actually in jail at the time that they said he was meant to be there. So yeah, it is very weird. And that's it, yeah. There is so much. Yeah, we will never know. That's it. Because all this information got repressed and covered up. And anyone that is still alive who can still remember it is probably too scared to talk. That's it, isn't it? A lot of people took a lot to their graves, didn't they? And I think some very rich people paid to have information wiped from the internet and all that sort of shit before they died. That is possibly where all Rudi Altobelli's money went. Because it is really bizarre if you Google him that you can find like no pictures of him. A few pictures of him at award ceremonies with actors that he must have represented and stuff like that. Not one photo of him going in and out of court. When you can find pictures of everyone else, but not Rudi Altobelli. There's one picture of Melcher, isn't there? There's that funny picture of Melcher and Peter Falk, Columbo, walking in together. And Columbo's looking at Dennis Wilson really nervous because he's going, "Come on, Terry, you told me there weren't going to be any cameras." Yeah, but they photographed them as they walked in, didn't they? Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly who lived there. Yeah, there's footage on YouTube of the inside of the guest house by the last people that lived there. Some of it is Trent Reznor's footage, but I think some of it might be that woman who, they're not talking, they're just out filming. They just walk out and they just walk around and film it, and they look at the garden, but they never turn the camera in the direction where the possible entrance to the back trails would be. That's the most frustrating thing, right? She pans, whoever's filming it looks out over the view of the valley, but then they stop. They never go that way to where the back trail might be. It's like, oh no, fucking hell. Because that's all been totally re-landscaped now and is completely different in it. So yeah, any trace of where these back trails would have been is totally gone now. Yeah. Huh. Oh, I don't find out all this information. There's a Manson community through Facebook, basically, and standalone forums. But yeah, when we all talk about it, there are books, lots of books, and I my speciality was finding all the police reports and what it actually said in the police reports, because I was shocked by how much it did actually tell you in the police reports about drugs being involved at Cielo Drive and that. I thought that there would be no evidence of that, but there's an FBI report saying they intercepted a crate full of a box that contained dangerous drugs. One of the steamer trunks got intercepted, and it contained dangerous drugs. We don't know what drugs. Between Roman Polanski and Wojtek Frykowski. So, like, the FBI were monitoring them for importing drugs at Cielo Drive and shit like that, and the FBI knew that at the time. And, yeah, all mention of drugs all gets covered up in court. You know, they don't talk about it at all, do they? Yeah. Well, that's it. Can you imagine Angela Lansbury, though? It'd be a bit cringy, wouldn't it? Yeah, trying to write. I am surprised, though, that there never was an episode of Murder, She Wrote where there's like a sort of Manson-like cult. Because Jessica Fletcher, they did a lot of episodes where there was girls who were drunk and that, and you'd see Angela Lansbury's character try and help her out, try and like sober the girl up and show her some support and that, which is kind of a throwback to what she did with her kids, because she took her kids to Ireland to straighten them out, didn't she, and all that sort of thing. But yeah, she never did do anything where there's like a Manson suggested character, was there? Yeah, that was it. Years of unnatural obsession with this case, that's it. Yeah, but it's so intriguing because it's so clear that what they tell us happened is not what happened. And it's been so long and so heavily covered up, we'll probably never know exactly what really happened. But it's obvious they were covering something up, isn't it? A lot up. And all we can do now is look at what fragments of evidence that there are and try and speculate on what the hell happened. But yeah, I don't think at this point, but you don't know. There might suddenly be another watershed moment and the police will reveal a load more evidence that they didn't release before and stuff like that. You never know, do you? But my gut feeling is that a lot of evidence got destroyed. There were so many rich people involved in this case. I reckon they could afford to pay to have people destroy records and stuff like that, So maybe these records don't even exist anymore, of the truth. That's the sad thing. Yeah. Well, this is all crazy. The cleanup thing as well. Yeah, all the noise reports, people hearing sounds at night. Yeah, like how many people are there? Sorry. So much goes on. Yeah. Sorry, just going to the chat for a second. Yeah, I just found an article by the guy that is, and this actually came out around the 50th anniversary. And Nicholas cites this in the Manson file. I did read it in the Manson file. It just slipped my mind. But there's a new article by, well, it's not new because it's from the 50th anniversary, so it's quite old now. But the guy was Jay Sebring's protege. He was training him to be a hairdresser sort of thing, so he spent a lot of time with Jay Sebring. And this guy says that Charles Manson turned up and tried to sell them some drugs at the gate, and Frykowski and Sebring beat him up at the gate. And that's from like Jay Sebring's like protege hair, like guy. It's interesting, yeah. And I've shared that. I know that's on the subreddit, and it's in the Facebook group. If you're in the Facebook group. Oh, and I found the Oz magazine articles as well. What they actually said in the UK, what was published in the UK. And they didn't publish Drug Burn. My dad was wrong. If anyone was paying attention to that. That what they actually published was the Paul Krasner stuff about Charles Winans. So they didn't mention drug burn. But that's the earlier CIA theory as well, because I'm actually more into history than social history than true crime, as it were, and I love tracing all these theories back to their original source. And the original CIA theory was about that guy Charles Winans, it seems, and that comes from Mae Brussell and Paul Krasner. And it's evolved over the years. Now Tom O'Neill has made it more about Johnny West, hasn't he? And the David Smith and that, that's, so it's just developed over the years. And they no longer talk about Charles Winans because Charles Winans sued a few publications and Paul Krasner, apparently, yeah. 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 Yes, yeah. Tom O'Neill has interviewed him, and there's an article that was published around the time of the 50th anniversary. And then when Once Upon a Time in Hollywood came out, they rehashed that article, but it had actually been published earlier. But yeah, I forget his name. But yes, the guy who was he was Jay Sebring's protege, so he hung around with Jay Sebring a lot, obviously, and saw a lot. And he's one of the few people who will mention that Jay Sebring did sell drugs. So, but he's reluctant to disparage him because obviously he feels bad. Everyone does because they're dead and they died so horribly. But yeah, he's one of the few people brave enough to say he knows Jay Sebring was a drug dealer by the sound of things. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's it. It does sound like it, doesn't it? Sebring and Frykowski were burning everyone, and they were doing all the profits. Yeah. Well, Jay Sebring is supposed to have had gambling debts as well, isn't he? And he was badly addicted to cocaine, and he'd also started taking amphetamines as well because amphetamines last longer. Like coke wears off like every half hour, 20 minutes to half hour, and you have to take more, but speed lasts for longer. So he was doing speed and coke apparently. Oh god. Yeah. Yeah, are you in my Facebook group? I've shared it in the Facebook group, and I've tried to. I don't know if I've put it onto the subreddit yet, but yeah, you can find an entire archive of Oz Magazine. There's a website with the entire archive, and if you just type Charles Manson, you find all the articles where Charles Manson was mentioned. And there's one that's just an extract from one of these exploitation books that's a load of rubbish about, just salacious stuff about the dark orgies they had and suggested occult rituals and that. But that's all just made up salacious crap that people wrote to sell books. There's no evidence for that either, And that was published in Oz Magazine. And then there's a letter from Scientologists saying, don't say that Charles Manson was a Scientologist because he wasn't a Scientologist. So they had to retract that, the stuff about Scientologists. Because Scientology and the Process Church sued Ed Sanders, didn't they, I think? So, yeah, they were all worried about getting sued because at the time, these organisations... Well, the Process Church, I don't think has enough money to sue anyone anymore, does it? That's why fucking Mary Terry gets away with it. But Scientology is still a big organisation. You can see your ass, can't we? Yeah. Right, well, this has been going for 1 hour, 12 minutes now. So I'll end this because that's a good length for it to be online, but I'll come back in about 5 minutes and do an after show. Just watch for the notification, and give me a break for a sec just to stretch my legs. Yeah, but thanks for coming, everyone. It's a great sized audience, and yeah, I'm glad people are enjoying it, and I get more positive comments now. I see, people do message me and say that they're grateful. Because I have been here for years, putting this stuff together now. It has been about 3 years, 4 years. And on the after show, I'll tell you, there's a few like snippets of glimmers of hope about some things that I don't want to leave up on the internet. But I'll talk to you in the after show. But anyway, yeah, I'll end this for a minute. But yeah, if you want to watch the after show, the notification will go up for it in about just give me a couple of minutes to stretch around and walk about a bit, and then I'll come back and we'll chat some more. Excellent. Right. Well, yeah. Hit the like button if you haven't already, and subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. I'm nearly at 1,500 subscribers now. If I can get up to 1,500 subscribers, that's 1,500. Excellent. Thanks. Yeah, come back for the after show if you want. I'll see you in a minute.